for coming on and joining the ARPA Community Town Hall. We're here today to sort of explain ARPA to you all. We have received federal funds from the government, and we want to get your input on how to best use those funds in your community. So just to run some expectations for tonight, we have a presentation, which should last about 20 to 30 minutes. And then we'll spend the rest of the time to answer as many questions as everyone who's joined us have. Please just go ahead and you can feel free to pop those questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll collect them and start answering them at the beginning of the Q&A session, or you can submit your question at any point during the Q&A session. As far as introductions go, my name is Kyle Klemp, and I work in the Office of the County Executive. And with us tonight, we have Carter Gibson, who is the legislative aide for Councilwoman Lisa Clancy. We have Kenneth Murdoch, who is our Director of Equity and Inclusion for St. Louis County. We also have Miss Theda Person, who works with Kenny as the Administrative Assistant for the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. And we have Ethel Bindham, who is in our community outreach group, as well as we have some folks on from Deloitte who are going to help us with any questions that might come up about potential program design or eligibility for different ARPA funds. I'm going to go ahead and give the first half of our presentation, and then our Chief Diversity Officer, Vita Jeffrey, will join to give the second half of our presentation, after which she will then moderate the discussion and answer any questions that you all have for our panelists. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get the show on the road. All right, can everybody see that? All right, thank you, Theda. So we want to start off by explaining the federal COVID dollars that we've received to St. Louis County. So since the beginning of the pandemic, there have been multiple federal relief bills that provided funds directly to local governments. In 2020, the federal government passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, also more commonly known as the CARES Act. In 2021, the federal government passed the American Rescue Plan, also more commonly known as ARPA. Both of these programs are federal funds which are used to mitigate and respond to the pandemic. But whereas CARES funding was emergency response funding, ARPA can be seen more as pandemic recovery funding. This really just means that there's a broader set of eligible uses for these funds with a longer timeline to spend those funds. So funds must be obligated by the end of 2024 and fully executed by 2026. Since these are recovery funds, the ARPA funds, there are more complex and stringent requirements that the county must adhere to in order to execute these funds in a compliant manner. To explain CARES though, in 2020, St. Louis County launched St. Louis County CARES, which appropriated $173 million in federal CARES Act funds to cover necessary expenses that were incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had three primary priorities for that CARES funding. The first being saving lives, second being helping residents meet basic needs, and the third to use those CARES funds to revive the local economy. St. Louis County Executive Sam Page established the St. Louis County CARES and announced an organizational structure and process for allocating those fund payments centered on those three key priorities. St. Louis County received $173 million in CARES allocation, and it was divided into these five primary funding allocations. $49 million went to health, which was used to decrease the rate and extent of COVID-19 spread by increasing community awareness, enforcing social distancing requirements, ensuring the equitable availability of testing and prevention. $30.6 million was used in humanitarian relief, and this meant meeting the basic needs of county residents by providing things like food, housing, safety, health services, and addressing vulnerable populations like children, seniors, the disabled, and the unhoused. 26.3 million was used in economic recovery. This was used on things like investing in strategies that revive the county's economy, including things like lifting economic restrictions, helping non-essential businesses reopen, and helping restaurants return to dine-in service, all in effort to push the economy forward. $47 million was put towards municipal reserves to provide financial assistance to local municipalities throughout St. Louis County to reimburse them for costs incurred related to the COVID-19 response and recovery. $20.5 million was used in county employee and constituent safety, used to upgrade county operations to protect the health and safety of St. Louis County government employees and constituents. In everything that we use these CARES Act funds for, we made sure to maintain a commitment to equity in all of the programs. Each of those programs funded through CARES were intentionally designed to meet those individuals where they were, being sure to steer resources to communities who need them the most. The next few slides that I'm going to go through are going to showcase just a couple of those programs which were funded by CARES dollars, and where in our community those funds were spent. The photo here is of a resident receiving one of our grant pads through CARES funding in March of 2021. That grant pad program helped seniors remain connected throughout the duration of the pandemic by giving them those devices. Another program that was funded with our CARES Act program was the Child Care Relief Program. With this program, St. Louis County contracted with United for Children and Child Care Aware of Missouri to provide technical assistance, training, access to technology, and other resources. As you can see, these childcare sites were scattered throughout St. Louis County, and our chart here shows exactly how many sites and how much each council district received to total that $1.8 million program funded completely through CARES. Our Digital Equity Initiative, this program provided 9,828 hotspots and 6,085 Chromebooks to school districts throughout the region. St. Louis County worked with county libraries to distribute Chromebooks and hotspots to school districts throughout the community. These resources allowed for school districts to adapt to virtual learning, especially in those districts that may not have had hotspots or Chromebooks prior to the pandemic. The photo in this slide is of LaVon Singleton, who is the Chief Financial Officer in Riverview Garden School District, and that is him at one of our distribution events where he helped get those Chromebooks and hotspots out. The last program that we wanted to showcase in this CARES portion of our presentation was the Small Business Relief Fund. Through this program, which was announced in May of 2020 and closed in September, St. Louis County provided over $19 million in grants of up to $15,000 to 1,663 small businesses. These funds were used to pay for the costs of business interruption as a result of business closings during the stay-at-home order, and to cover costs associated with reopening safely. As you can see, $19.3 million was spent, a little bit under that, and was used throughout all 7 council districts, and you can see here the breakdown of where those were approved and the percentage of sites. So with that, I am going to see if we have, is Vita on our line yet? So it looks like we might have Vita join us a bit later, so I am going to go ahead and continue here. So we've given you a breakdown of what CARES was, and really our focus in showing just a little bit of what we did with the CARES program is, one, to show sort of the way that we use these funds to respond to the immediate needs of the pandemic when it was first occurring, but also to give some background on what sort of ideas we funded with that program to maybe get your mind going to what we can use these ARPA funds for. So with that, what is ARPA? So the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA, is a $1.9 trillion economic stimulus bill that was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Biden on March 11th, 2021. The American Rescue Plan delivered $350 billion for state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to respond to the COVID-19 emergency and bring back jobs. The goal of this federal legislation is to provide additional relief addressing the continued impact of COVID-19 on the areas of the economy, public health, state and local governments, individuals, and businesses. Funding objectives of ARPA. One, to support urgent COVID-19 response efforts, to continue to decrease spread of the virus and bring the pandemic under control, to replace lost public sector revenue, to strengthen support for vital public services and help retain jobs, to support immediate economic stabilization for household businesses, and to address systemic public health and economic challenges that have contributed to the unequal impact of the pandemic. ARPA eligible expenditures. So we're going to go through and explain the different ARPA eligible expenditure categories. But before we get through that, we want to explain that any items that do not fall into the approved spending categories that are listed in the next slides are not considered eligible uses of ARPA funds. So when you're going through that survey and thinking of ideas of things that you want to have funded with these ARPA dollars that the county's received, make sure you're keeping in mind these eligible spending categories. And with that, I see that Vita has joined. Vita, would you like to go ahead and we'll get you to the next slide and go through? All right.
Okay, thank you so much, Kyle, for that, and forgive me for having connection problems. If we look at these categories, the categories are listed here that are ARPA eligible, as Kyle explained. What I will go through is give you the understanding in the following slides of what types of things you can utilize and what kinds of things you won't be able to. So that way, when you're filling out your surveys, you'll understand what's applicable and what's not. So let's go on and go through to the next slide. All right, so ARPA category expenditure number one, supporting public health response. And let me see if I can grab one thing, guys. Okay, I'm not going to be able to. All right, so this slide looks at supporting services that contain and mitigate the spread of COVID-19, behavioral health service, and payroll cover benefits. And so understanding that all of the list of things that we have to look at are containing, utilizing the vaccination, actually putting together sites to mitigate the spread of the pandemic. I'm sorry. Okay, to mitigate the spread of the pandemic. Also looking at the mental health capacity builders for our children and adults, and then payroll cover benefits for those individuals that have had to work through the pandemic during the times of shutdown, those individuals whose salary did not cover losses that they experienced during the pandemic period. Though helping us to meet needs is one of the categories that we can utilize funds for. Next slide. So the next spending category, replacing public sector revenue loss, ensuring continuity of vital governmental services, revenue loss is calculated, and then how recipients can recalculate the revenue loss. One of the things that we've talked about with this particular category is making certain that we explain the opportunity to utilize ARPA funds to replace lost revenue as it pertains to St. Louis County needing to ensure that our government continue to operate during the pandemic period and during the shutdown. So what did it take for us to make sure that we did not have to lay off individuals? The option that we had was to increase taxes or to lay off individuals. And so this category helps us to mitigate that for us. Okay, I'm so sorry, Cal. I was trying to see if my computer, guys, I'm traveling and my computer is not liking it. And so forgive me for that. Okay. Yeah, Kyle, I might need you to finish the slides because my computer is going in and out and I don't want to slow us tonight. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. So to continue Vita's comments, one of the primary categories that we can use ARPA funds on is to replace the revenue that was lost as a result of the pandemic to our state and local governments. That can be calculated relative to previous fiscal years and what we expected to make in that fiscal year, whether it be 2020, 2021, so on and so on. And just that recipients can recalculate revenue loss at multiple times during that eligible period that ARPA funds can be obligated. The third ARPA eligible spending category is water and sewer infrastructure. This includes improvements to infrastructure such as building or upgrading facilities, transmission, distribution, or storage systems. And eligible uses are aligned to EPA's project categories for Clean State Water Revolving Fund, as well as Drinking State Water Revolving Fund. The next eligible spending category is pretty broad. It's addressing negative economic impacts. And really what that just means is delivering assistance to workers and families, which includes support for things like unemployment, aid to household and survivors benefits for families of COVID-19 victims, support to small businesses through loans, grants, in-kind assistance and counseling programs, speeding up the recovery of impacted industries, in industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality, and then to rebuild public sector capacity, which is done by rehiring staff, replenishing state unemployment insurance funds, and implementing economic relief programs. Also considered under the negative economic impacts category is education and childcare. So this just means investing in things that would increase access to education and development, including after-school care, daycare programs, and childcare financial assistance. The fifth category of ARPA eligible expenditures is premium pay. Premium pay just means providing a higher rate of pay to essential workers, either directly to employees or through grants to third-party employers. Priority for these essential premium pay for essential workers is low and moderate income individuals, which is listed as those who face the greatest disparity between employment-related health risks and the compensation that they receive. Some key sectors that would be included under essential workers would be healthcare workers, grocery and food service workers, educators, childcare workers, sanitation workers, transit workers, and other people who are considered at a higher health risk based on their job category. Broadband infrastructure is also something that is considered an ARPA eligible expenditure. The focus is on households and businesses, either without access to broadband or those where the connection does not provide at least the minimally acceptable speeds. Another focus is to fund projects that deliver reliable services with minimum download and upload speeds, unless, of course, it's impracticable to do so. And then also, these funds can complement other broadband investments made through the Capital Projects Fund, which is a $10 billion program underneath ARPA, separate from these local funds that are given to governments such as St. Louis County. ARPA also offers a unique and additional flexibility in how these funds are spent for communities which were hardest hit by the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this presents an opportunity to address those health disparities, to invest in housing, and to address educational disparities, as well as promoting healthy childhood environments for our children. So those are the categories that we can spend the funds on. Now we're going to talk a bit about what the county has actually received, what we spent it on, and then we'll get to our survey and how you all can provide your feedback. So St. Louis County received just over $193 million in ARPA funds on July 17th, 2021. And since then, St. Louis County has worked to appropriate those funds to programs with an equitable impact following the guidelines set forth by the U.S. Treasury that we just went over. To date, St. Louis County has allocated $107.8 million in the following ARPA eligible categories. $5 million was allocated to the Department of Human Services to help fund the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which provides assistance with eviction prevention for households in St. Louis County. $5.7 million was put into premium pay, and of that, $5.1 million was allocated to the Justice Services Department to provide premium pay increases to corrections workers inside our county justice centers as they worked throughout the pandemic, throughout the work stoppages that we experienced. Additionally, in premium pay, $624,000 was allocated to our three departments, Transportation and Public Works, Revenue, and Administration, to provide premium pay increases to those eligible employees as they also had to maintain daily duties throughout the course of the pandemic. $11.9 million has been allocated to our Department of Public Health to fund the vaccine gift card incentive program, as well as to provide staffing, testing, vaccine, and other eligible COVID-19 response related expenses. $1 million was allocated to provide for administrative costs, including legal and compliance measures, which is allowed under ARPA. And then lastly, $84.2 million has been allocated to go towards revenue replacement. In response to the unprecedented impact of COVID-19 to county revenue streams, the county has allocated these funds towards revenue replacement with the purpose of ensuring continuity of vital government services by filling those budget shortfalls we experienced as a result of the pandemic. So to clarify, St. Louis County's budget department calculated our revenue loss relative to the last full fiscal year before the pandemic, so 2019, and then relative to the expected trend of what our revenue would have been if not for the pandemic, was able to calculate exactly how much money the county did not receive, and thus a portion of these funds were put towards revenue replacement. Had we not allocated a portion of those funds towards revenue replacement, St. Louis County would have risked either increasing revenue, potentially through tax increases, or by reducing costs by diminishing county services that our county residents rely on. Allocating some of those funds to revenue replacement was essential so that St. Louis County could continue to provide essential services, including maintenance and construction of county roads and infrastructure, running our systems of county parks and programming in our parks, providing health services through our Department of Public Health, funding public safety, including police and justice services, funding for human services, including employment, housing, programs for the youth, elderly, disabled, and veterans, as well as planning, zoning, building codes, and the like. And that's just a small sample of some of the services that St. Louis County provides that we're able to continue despite the pandemic because of some of those funds being allocated towards revenue replacement. One more thing to hammer down that point. This chart here shows a breakdown from 41 cities and 104 counties throughout the United States on how their ARPA dollars were spent in the different expenditure categories. As you can see, cities and counties across the country have to date used a substantial portion of their ARPA dollars to replace lost revenue. Some governments, including Long Beach, California, San Francisco, and San Diego, as well as Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, have decided to use their full ARPA allocation just towards revenue replacement, allocating no other funds to any of these other eligible categories. So we're definitely in good company using a portion of our funding to make sure continuity of our essential county services is being fulfilled. Open data. So St. Louis County is committed to spending these funds in a transparent manner, allowing for public disclosure and input at every step of the process. We'll continue to update our allocations, expenditures, and ARPA amounts remaining to be spent online on our open data portal. This here is a screenshot of our open data portal specific to the ARPA program, but we also have these open data portals for all of county spending, including other federal COVID funds like the CARES Act, and we have open data for various different things, which you can find at stlouiscountymo.gov underneath the Open Data tab at the top of the page. So please know that St. Louis County is committed to public engagement throughout the process of allocating and spending these federal ARPA dollars. We've hosted a total of, or we'll be hosting a total of 6, now 7 actually, town halls in the month of March of 2020, where the focus is to engage with and hear from you all, the community, to help us understand what your priorities are and how the remaining funds should be spent. Also, we encourage you, which we'll go over here in just a minute, to take our ARPA Community Needs Survey, which we launched at the end of February 2022 online at stlouiscountymo.gov. And we're happy to announce that as of this morning, we've actually received over 2,400 surveys. So if you haven't taken the survey yet, please be sure to do so. Our Community Needs Survey, we have a QR code here. If you want to take a picture of that or a screenshot, that'll take you right to our survey. But really the purpose of this survey is to hear directly from residents on how the county should consider investing a portion of those ARPA dollars in order to respond to what the community feels its needs are. Our survey is available in multiple languages and can be accessed via a screen reader for those who may have visual impairments and need some assistance. Every response on the survey is voluntary, and any question can be left blank if you choose not to answer it. And it is available in paper as well at our local public libraries and can be used on our mobile devices. I'm very happy about that. So as I mentioned earlier, we've received 2,400 surveys thus far. This chart here shows where exactly in the county those surveys have been received from, where you have a heat map. The darker the blue, the more surveys we've received. And this is as of actually this morning, so we're very excited about that. You see your zip code, seeing a lighter color. Make sure you take that survey and encourage your friends to do it as well. You can take the survey online, like I said, if you go to stlouiscountymo.gov/community needs survey, or if you just go to our webpage, it's right on the homepage. This is just a screenshot of what that survey looks like. But if you go online, you can take that survey. Our survey closes March 25th, and the information collected from the survey will again be used to assist the county in making those decisions on how the remaining federal funds should be spent based on the feedback that you give us. So with that, go ahead and end the presentation and end that so we can go ahead and move into our questions phase. So thank you all for sitting through that presentation. And we now have our panel, and Theda and Kenny here will read off our questions and we'll do our best to answer them. So thank you.
Okay, I see 2 questions. One, there's a greeting, good evening. Will you be taking public testimony tonight? And if so, do I need to sign up somewhere? The second question is similar. Will there be an opportunity to offer testimony?
So you can submit your questions about this ARPA spending or the survey or anything in the chat tonight. As far as a testimony, I think they may be referring to perhaps the county council chambers, which Tuesday nights at 6:30 in Clayton, they have the county council meeting where you can sign up to speak. I believe, Carter, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 3-minute speech that or comments that they can make at the county council.
And you have to sign up outside of the council chambers. I think it's open 30 minutes before the meeting starts. So starting at 6 until just a couple minutes before the meeting starts. So as long as you put your name down and are at the chambers, you're welcome to give a comment there.
Great.
Also, if anyone has a longer question, you can email us questions to ARPA Town Hall questions at stlouiscountymo.gov. And that's ARPA, all capital, ARPA for ARPA, Town Hall questions, lowercase, at stlouiscountymo.gov.
All right, are there any other questions in the chat or?
Go ahead, Theda. I can only see half of that question.
Okay, they should provide that idea in the survey response. I see in here. Okay, can we be emailed a copy of the presentation slide deck?
So the slideshow is updated regularly for things like how many surveys we received, that heat map. Once I think our last town hall is Wednesday at, I believe, I know it's at a county library, if someone can fill in the blanks of where that exactly is. Once we have our last
6 p.m.
Sorry, I don't know if I got that. Once we have our last presentation done, our last town hall, which again is Wednesday, we will post the slide deck on our website, stlouiscountymo.gov, on the open data page, the same place where you can view our ARPA expenditures dashboard. So yes, we will have this publicly posted.
Okay, I have another question, and that is from Mr. Elkison, and it is how much, if any, money has been allocated to the International Institute of St. Louis to help with the Afghan refugees in our county?
So I'll take a first stab at that question, and then Dickie or Damon, if you want to fill in the eligibility portion of that. The first part of the answer is, so far, none of the funds have been allocated. We went over what the funds have been allocated for thus far, but the purpose of these town halls is to discuss what the community feels the remaining funds should be spent on. So if a portion of the funds you would like to see put towards the International Institute, put that in your survey. But again, everything that these funds are spent on must fall into an approved ARPA eligible expenditure category as defined by the Treasury. And for that, I'll defer to Damon and Dickie if they want to provide if they have any comment on whether a program that would give funds to the International Institute would be considered ARPA eligible.
So this is Damon. The only way to do it would be to allocate funding through the provision of government services under the revenue loss parameters of the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund program. There's no direct allowance for that population within the construct of ARPA as a specified program.
Thank you.
There are
There's a question. I'm sorry.
No,
At
okay.
least there's a statement in here. We have a proposal for healthcare spending of ARPA dollars. No question, just a statement.
Yeah, there seems to be a few statements like that. So let me clarify for everyone. This effort by us is a crowdsourcing effort. What we're putting out today and our last meeting coming up this Wednesday is the opportunity for you to fill out a survey, and in that give us ideas for how we should spend the money. We want to know from the community those ideas of how it should spend, and then we'll aggregate those ideas to the people, collect them, and they'll send it to county council, and county council will make those choices. But this is crowdsourcing of ideas, so we're not coming to you to the table tonight to tell you how we're going to do things. We're coming to hear from you what ideas we should look at towards doing things.
And Kenny, let me speak to that also, because what I hear in that question is they have a proposal that they want to present. So I think individuals that have proposals like that should send them to our email address, and then we can forward that information to the county council. So we can put that up again. So I think it's ARPA Town Hall. I don't want to say it wrong.
I will re-put it in the chat, but it's capital A, capital R, capital P, capital A, ARPA, Town Hall questions at stlouiscountybo.gov.
Yeah, so anyone that has a prepared proposal, by all means, email that information to us so that we can forward that to the council for consideration as well. We don't want to stop you from letting your project be heard. So send that to us and we'll make certain to forward that as well.
All right, what is the deadline for submitting a proposal via email?
So the deadline for the survey is March 25th. So please submit the surveys by March 25th. However, as we kind of alluded to earlier, you're always welcome to come to County Council at our County Council meetings, which happen every Tuesday night, to voice your opinion on how those funds should be allocated, because it is up to the council to make these allocations of how the federal dollars are spent.
To piggyback off of that, there was a question earlier in the chat that asked about the timeline for appropriation after the survey closed. I don't know. I'll let you guys speak to the timeline for getting survey results to the county council, but I will say that it seems like the council is all in agreement that we won't be appropriating many of any more dollars until we get those survey results back and have a chance to review them. And then decisions will be made there as a body as to what to do with that money, but there's not any specific timeline in mind or straight path forward necessarily. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion once we get those survey results back.
I see a question. How does a non-staff, all volunteer 501c3 membership or about COVID-19, such as vaccine, I don't know what I don't understand that question. There's another question in here. Thank you all for the informative presentation tonight. How long will you be taking ideas at the email address after the survey closes?
We would like for sorry, Judy, you can go ahead.
Everything has to be in by the 25th. We have to have that information so that we can pull together all of our data and get it to the county council. So you have until the 25th to submit the resume, and if you have an attachment that needs to go along with your resume with the survey, then you can email that to the until the 25th.
And I'm not sure if this has been asked, what is the process and projected timeline for making allocation decisions after the survey closes?
That's what I was attempting to address, to say that the compliance team will get those survey results to the council. I'm sure that'll take a little while to compile, and then the council will review those. There's not a set in stone timeline or procedure for reviewing those established at this point. So the council will review those in their own time.
And I'll just add that from the federal government's perspective, the funds must be allocated by December 31st, 2024. So that is the allocation deadline from the federal government's perspective.
Before we move on, this is Ethel Bindum, if I can give a little insight. I think the question about a volunteer organization wanting to hold a vaccine event is what that question was posing. And I believe that is something that our Department of Health should handle. I believe that there is a committee in place in which they can contact our Department of Health and see what needs to be done or what's required to hold a vaccine event. Hopefully that answers it.
So if that's the case, then we can submit that information to them, to the team, and let them know. Sounds like.
Is that in regard to the Department of Health?
Yeah, it sounds like if there's someone that's here tonight and that is what they were asking, they can give us their information and we'll submit that for them. We won't put them through another step.
I think they're asking if they can be taken off mute to explain it. So that's in the chat now.
I can't even see the chat.
I see a question that I don't believe has been presented. How much, if any, money has been allocated to the International Institute of St. Louis to help with Afghan refugees in our country?
We did address that question earlier.
So is there still an outstanding question in the chat? I think I'm confused.
Only Mr. Maldonado would like to be taken off mute to explain more of this question. I'm not sure.
You say Mr. Maldonado?
Yeah.
Is that Tony Maldonado?
Yeah, Antonio. Yeah, Antonio.
Is it?
Yeah.
So
He would like to be
I don't know.
mute to see if he can answer this question directly. And other than that, his question is the one lingering right now in the chat.
So Kyle, you have to answer that. I don't know how. That's a technical question that's way above my capabilities.
I don't know if individuals can be.
I can unmute Mr. Maldonado if you want him to speak.
Sure.
Yeah, unmute
Okay.
him and let him speak to the panel.
Good evening. This is Tony Maldonado. I'm chairman of the Hispanic Leaders Group.
How you doing, Mr. Maldonado? Please take the floor.
A shout out to a few of the people that I recognize the name, like the other person, Ms. Biden. Thank you so much for inviting me, letting me be on this. My apologies. I was running around, and so I got on this call through my phone. So I'm on my mobile, and my fingers are too fat for the little typing in the chat. So that's why the first question was incomplete. So basically, my question was, what I was going to finish writing in the first chat was that I wanted to know, how does a non-for-profit, no staff, no office, all volunteer organization like the Hispanics Leaders Group tap into or request monies from this program to continue the work that we've been doing for the last couple of years, which is we have done vaccine events, we've done pop-up events with the city of Florissant, with Afghan Healthcare, with Delwood Pharmacy. We had distributed masks from the very beginning. We've gotten masks from the county and PPEs in at least in 2 rounds. And we have distributed masks in the Hispanic community and in North County, because we're also involved in the North County Stakeholders Committee for Vaccine Hesitancy. So we've been doing a lot of work, and we've been taking on the expense. Because we understood that because there's no staff in an office or that we're all volunteers, that we could not apply for any grants. So, but I'm thinking this has been very unusual in terms of the collaboration that everybody has had to do in order to combat this COVID-19 and all of the negative effects and consequences that come from it. So that was kind of like what I was trying to allude to in the first question.
Thank you for that, Mr. Maldonado. I think, first of all, you definitely are to be commended for the efforts that you are putting towards and keeping the community safe. We absolutely appreciate your volunteer efforts. I think the question that you're asking, however, the ARPA funds have steep stipulations that the county council will have to follow for any funds that they allocate to the community, to organizations, to causes, whatever it is that they choose to. If they don't stay within those rigid guidelines, then what will happen once the federal government recognizes that the funding was spent differently than they listed in the categories that the council have to abide by, then the county, St. Louis County, would have to pay those funds back. So what you will find is that the council will will go through, can't talk tonight, will go through and make certain that they are staying in line with the requirements that the federal government has put in place. So the best way you can go about asking what you're asking us tonight is to fill out the survey and then put that question in the fillable section, and then the county council, once we give them the feedback and the data, they'll have that as well. So thank you so much for coming on and giving us your question as it pertains to that. Was that it?
I think that's all in the chat right now.
Okay.
Peter, could you just remind the audience about us capturing the questions just in case there is one overlooked so that they can know that their questions will be noted?
Absolutely. Well, you actually just did, but thank you for that. So any question that came through, either in the in-person town halls or in our virtuals, we will be capturing that information and posting it on the website so that you can go there and go back through it and make certain that you understand the answers that have been put to the questions that you have. So thank all of you. And please know that your questions matter to us, your surveys matter to us, and your time matters to us. I think Kyle did a tremendous job of just detailing through the slides so that we could make certain that you have an understanding as to what the steps are that's required by St. Louis County, what steps have already been taken, and then how we're looking to move forward. And Kyle, I appreciate you stepping in and filling in for me as I had technical challenges as well tonight. Ms. Theta, are there any other questions that we have in the chat?
I don't see any questions, basically recommendations.
Can I add one thing? There's an individual who is private messaging me rather than the group, so I'll read his question aloud. The question to the group is from how will oversight be conducted? When, how, and who? So I'll take a first stab at that, but I'll let anyone else add any parts that I'm missing. So in our presentation, we touched a bit on our commitment to open data. This is something that's true of these ARPA dollars, as well as every other dollar that is spent, used, whether it's other federal grants or the revenue that we receive through sales taxes, personal property taxes, real estate taxes, so on and so on. We are going to make sure that we continue to update our ARPA funding dashboard, which shows the allocation of funds, where they're being allocated. Once those funds are allocated, what amount has been spent, into what vendors those payments are going to, and you can track it down to, if you go on there and look at the vaccine incentive program, for example, you'll see that what stores the gift cards were purchased from. So it goes down into pretty good detail. There are also strict requirements from the federal government on reporting for these federal funds. There are quarterly reports, which are posted publicly on our website, stlouiscountymo.gov under the Open Data tab. There's also yearly reports, which must be filed And this will have to go on through the duration of the ARPA program. That dashboard that I mentioned is something that St. Louis County, it's not required of the federal government, but it's something that we want to make as open and transparent as possible, so that people know where their dollars are being spent. And anybody else who wants to add, if there's anything more to add, feel free to do so.
One more question has come into the chat. That question is from Ms. Shackelford. It states this: if a business receives CARES funds and still went under, they had to close their business. Can they have access to ARPA funds through their community?
So I think I'm understanding the question to mean they received, maybe it was a small business grant through CARES, their business no longer exists despite that, and they want ARPA funding. It would really depend on what the funds would be used for, or what they wanted to use those funds for. That would be in the details of the program design. My suggestion would be for that individual in their survey to be a little bit more descriptive, maybe on what they view something like that would look like. And then we'd be able to determine if that's eligible for ARPA funding, and county council would then decide if they wanted to put funds towards a program that would fit the bill that they put in their survey.
True, and Damien also put into the chat, it depends on what they want it for. So I think we're all on the same page there. And to help the general public out, if you have an idea, it's best to look at the eligibility factors and work kind of backwards. Make sure your idea fits into that. That way your idea, has more possibility of passing through.
And just to be clear, receiving money from grant funding from CARES, that does not prohibit you from receiving any funds in the future, ARPA funds. Any more questions?
That was the last one I see in the chat for everyone.
More questions or while they make certain we've questions please for others that you have an opportunity to take service need. We can't
Vita, you're cutting out.
you can get okay.
I think Vita was trying to
Can you
reiterate.
hear me now at all?
Now we hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Vita. We can hear you now at that time.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate that our need really is to get as many people as possible to take the survey. So we have an in-person town hall this Wednesday from 6 to 8 at Thornhill Library, which is across the street from Parkway North. You can pick up a paper survey there and return it to the library if that is the way that you need to. But we need to make certain that we make every opportunity available to get survey feedback from as many people as we can. So if there are no more questions, we want to definitely that
Yeah, I think what Vita was saying, if there are no
and
more
answer questions, we want to thank.
Go ahead.
I think we lost Vita.
I think she might be
Kenny,
from.
if you want to close us out, I think we'll be
Sure.
good.
Well, we'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. We want to encourage you to reach out to other members of your community and help them fill out those surveys. March 25th, the closing date is coming in soon, and we really want as much of the community input as we possibly can get, because your ideas are the ones that would make this community better. So we'd like to thank you for being in this town hall tonight. And Carter, you have something you want to say before we go out? You're muted, Carter. Carter, you muted?
Sorry about that. Damon pointed out that there was one more question in the chat, so I just wanted to highlight that. The question is the format of the town hall the same as tonight? And my understanding is no, that it is in person.
That is correct.
Could you remind us where that's at?
The town hall on Wednesday, March 23rd is at 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. at the Thornhill St. Louis County Library. That's at 12863 Willowick Drive, St. Louis 63146. I believe that's northwest county, like Creve Coeur area.
Yeah. All right, then with that, we're going to be closing down tonight. Thank you all for attendance. We hope you get your surveys in as soon as possible, and everybody take good care of yourself. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you.